We are sponsored by Soho Bistro and Lounge.
Good morning, listeners, and welcome back to another episode of Talk About It with Sam, where we discuss today's current events, life, health, wealth, and lifestyle. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe for more content. We have so much more to come. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Talk About It with Sam. I'm super excited today to introduce my new friend, Coach Kenneth. Hi, Kenneth. How are you today?
Really great. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Do you want to tell us a little about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm actually an elevation and performance coach, and then I specialize in human capacity and potential. So I work with people and being able to get them to achieve things that they currently haven't been able to get themselves to achieve, or make changes in their life they're looking to make going into the next chapters of their life.
How do you do that?
Yeah, so I actually use what I call the human SOP, which is the superior operating procedures. So there are 8 pillars that I believe if we can master as humans, that ultimately we can achieve or make any changes we want to see in our life.
That's amazing. Are you able to share the 8 with me?
Yes, of course. So the 8 pillars are mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, relationship, financial, self-auditing tools, habits, and processes, and then measuring your success metrics.
Wow. Those
Yeah.
are, that you just hit everything that has to do with with life.
Everything, yes.
And it really is just like mind, body, soul, spirit. Like it's all connected, but that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. So do you want to kind of dive into your journey a little bit? Like what got you into the fitness industry? How long have you been doing it?
Yeah, so I grew up in Texas, and so just in Dallas, Texas. I grew up in Friday Night Lights, so for me, sports was everything growing up. I knew the seasons in soccer, baseball, basketball, and football, and not in summer, spring, fall. So I grew up, sports was the way that in a little town, we survived. It was my friends did sports, my parents' groups, friends were other parents that were in sports. I grew up in a high school that was pretty small, and so it was the idea that football was kind of everything. So started early, went to college to play ball, found myself outside of football and got into cheerleading and track. Really enjoyed that experience. Spent a good amount of time in college cheerleading. I cheered at some big schools, Navarro, Texas Tech, Sam Houston. So I saw some really cool worlds in cheerleading. After I got done with college, I actually unfortunately fell into an addiction. So when I found myself in addiction from 19 to 23, it was kind of the first time that I had to endure life in the way that I hadn't kind of experienced as a little bit of a sheltered kid. Being in a small town, we were kind of in a bubble, and so when I got out and experienced life for the first time, it smacked me. I went 4 years in between cocaine and alcohol, trying to just numb things that I hadn't fully ironed out or dove into. Wanted to look at the shadow work that I needed to dive into. And then found myself in bodybuilding. And I think fitness really was probably the way that I moved that energy of addiction into a little bit more of a healthy outlet. I dove in pretty hard. So I will be honest that I probably just switched somewhat of the addiction at first. It was easy for me not to be on the addiction and then just diet and cardio and training. And I was growing a business at the time. So I just dove extremely hard, probably just exchanging of an addiction there at the beginning. That addiction turned into the passion that you guys now see as Coach Kenneth and moving into the human SOP. So once I ironed out what I needed to internally, I was able to then become the coach that I am now. So.
Wow, that's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm very proud of you. It's not easy to overcome those things and to get where you are right now, but you did it.
Thank you.
So you hit a huge topic, which is very important to me that I would like to kind of dive into.
Yeah.
Shadow work, which is not easy, right? Shadow work can be very, very difficult and very challenging, but it's absolutely beautiful too, because when you come out of it, on the other side of it, you are allowing yourself to let go of this weight that you've been carrying on for all of these years, and you're allowing yourself to evolve, and now new things can come in. And I kind of had to learn that the hard way. I was holding on to all of this baggage, and I was holding on to all of these things that just didn't matter anymore. And I really had to learn to kind of let that stuff go. I'm still learning it, to really let that stuff go, because once you let it go, now you can allow yourself to evolve. You can allow all these beautiful things to come into your life, and you can move on to the next phase. What would you say was the hardest part of your shadow work experience?
I recognize that my shadow work journey has been continuous, nonstop. But as I open myself up to deeper shadows, it ultimately seemed to be getting harder. I end up getting stronger as I continue to dive in, but as I got stronger, so did the shadow work that I had to do to really, at first, I would say a scale of 1 out of 10, I was dealing with like the 1 out of 3s, like very small stuff, but I needed to iron it out first. And then just over the last 10 years, now I'm dealing with like the 9s and 10s. And that's been really difficult, is because I'm going through a divorce right now. And that was one that, like, I thought I had handled the stuff. I was in a good marriage at the time, and we just had decided to take different journeys. And I thought I was in a really good place. And then it happened. And all of a sudden the 8, 9s, and 10s of shadows, they came up, and I had to dive in hard. So for me, it's been this continuous process. And as I got in deeper, it got harder. So that was really difficult for me. Is I think I thought once I could start ironing some shit out, then it would become rainbows and butterflies, and that's not the situation that it has turned into.
No, and actually, so you're hitting all of the points that I would have ended up discussing anyway. So that's really great. So because it's not, right? That as long as you're a human being and you're here on this earth, things are going to happen, situations are going to occur, and we have to take that as it goes. And regardless of how much work we do on ourselves, we have to heal for the rest of our lives. Healing is a journey. You do it every single day. So it's like when things arise and we might not handle them so great, or we have situations that are pretty kind of like traumatic in our lives, like a separation, things like that. You know, even though you've done shadow work and you've already had a healing experience, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have to do more and continue to heal later on.
Yes.
I find myself learning stuff like that every day. Like, you know, like yesterday I had a bad day. If I have a bad day, it's like today I have to really look at my attitude yesterday. That's shadow work. And it's like, it can be something as simple as that, or it could be something as serious as having to kind of look at your divorce or your separation and say kind of like, what could I have done better here? Should I have done this? Or however it is that you're working through it. So it's really important to say that, because when I talk about healing, a lot of people will say, oh, well, I'm healed. I'm a healed woman. Like, I've done all my healing, but you haven't, because your journey isn't over. And things are going to happen that you're going to have to heal from. And that's going to be continuous. So it's like just remembering that, so that you can continuously also remember to let the baggage go. Because I think the first round of the spiritual awakening and like the healing process and like understanding the journey is probably the hardest. But as long as you have a full understanding of it, you can move throughout life and understand that things are meant to come and go. And that's exactly how it works. That's the balance of it all. But that you will, because you're human and because you're filled with all of these emotions, that you may have to kind of reinvent that healing wheel. You know, you might have to go on another healing journey. So
Yes.
that's beautiful. And it's great too that you have that experience, because now you can work through this kind of second half of your life with an understanding, which I think is the most important part, right? Like, once we understand something and we have clarity, then we know how to kind of move into fruition, and we know how to handle the situation.
Yes, I agree.
That's great. So can you tell us a little bit about your mental health? So you've already hit on a couple of really good topics, like your sobriety, and then getting into like fitness. And before we started the podcast, you were pretty transparent and discussed that you do go to therapy, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But how did all of that affect your mental health, and what did you do to bring yourself into such a positive environment now?
Yeah. So I work with both a clinician, so a clinical therapist, and I dive in pretty heavily to a lot more of the child things that I dealt with my therapist. And then I also have both a mentor and a spiritual coach, which I really, my mentor is someone that I really lean on for advice. So really, as I deal with problems and things, I will go and almost kind of a soundboard. I really kind of bounce ideas off of them. And then my spiritual coach is someone I really take in pretty heavily from the meditation, breath work, really kind of, me and him have worked into getting to a place of me moving with an open heart and with love. And so in my shadow work, it's getting to a place where above all else, I move with love. Getting to a place with even my ex-wife where I can have and facilitate full love for her, like just beautiful love for her. And with my therapist, getting to a point where the things that happened in my childhood don't continue to show up in my life now. So I move from, there are 3 live versions within me that are always moving. My soul, which is the being that happens us as kids, that also grows up with us. We then have our ego, and then we have our physical body. And so diving into each one of my therapist, my mentor, and then my spiritual coach, I really kind of give each one of those 3 kind of a guider. So someone that can kind of lead me in those 3 areas. I noticed that my ego is the one that I actually have to do the shadow work in. Our soul doesn't actually have to do shadow work. So it's forever pure. It's the one that's always moving with love. It's the one that has our visions and has our dreams. That's our beautiful part. That's the soul, the one that we are in love. Our physical body is the trigger. So that's actually what I spend a lot of time with my therapist with is childhood experience. It's a trigger. So I feel the trigger in my body and I deal with those things because I recognize, oh, I'm not actually in a dangerous situation. That is just my younger child showing up right now and triggering because it was an experience that I once had. And so I deal with a lot of my physical being with my therapist. Hey, I experienced stress the other day, what was going on, and we talk through. So each one of those kind of mentors or teachers I keep in my life for me understanding that I have different versions of myself. And that was really hard because I think for a long time, I thought I was me, like all of me, like my thoughts were my thoughts, or my triggers were my triggers, or it was who I am, or identified with those types of things. And I think the hard part was actually realizing that like I'm not my thoughts. I have thoughts, but I'm not my thoughts, or I have emotions, but I'm not my emotions, or I have a past, but I'm not my past. I have a future, but I'm actually not my future. I'm this current personal being all the time. And that was really hard for my mental health because I think with the addiction, I was trying to regulate my current state because of the shit that happened prior to my life. Or I would make decisions to try and avoid future problems because of what I was experiencing now. And so my mental health has really kind of been this awareness of really how I show up in this world in numerous ways. Like in this my past relationship, we had a really beautiful marriage. She had actually just found herself in a time period where she wanted to kind of go and explore life solo by herself. So there was no damage in the marriage. There was no like something went on and then all of a sudden it broke down in the situation. She just decided that she wanted to go explore life and find herself outside of a marriage. And for me, I went, I'm the failure. I went, now I'm alone. Now I went me. Like it was towards me. And so that first shadow work was realizing like, no, her life is hers. Like her decision had nothing to do with me. And all of the things that I was experiencing was abandonment from a childhood. So when shit came up now, I was dealing with childhood stuff, or getting to a place with my spiritual coach where I can move from love as I was holding on to anger that she left me, or anger what had gone on. And so I had to move with love. And so therapy has really kind of gotten to a place where maybe detached is a decent word, that I'm detached from the respondents of other people, or I'm detached from my past, or I'm detached from this need to become something in my future. And I'm just currently always existing like right now here with you on this podcast is just as present as I am with my clients when I work with them, or my friends, or my future partner that I will be intimately. It's like I am my current being right here. And that was really one of my big mental health things, is detaching from this and just moving from love all the time.
Wow, well, that's amazing. Your journey is very impressive. I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
It's not an easy thing to master, but I do think that, once you become so spiritually involved or inclined and you start doing the work and you find yourself in a situation that like you and I are in, and your awareness is so open, and like you're just so aware that it's hard to do that. It really is. It's hard to detach. It's hard to even move with love sometimes. They think that, people will say, well, it's seamless, you can love everybody, but can you? Especially when you're aware, and you have to really kind of face things that are really ugly behind beautiful people. You could be looking at the most beautiful person in the world, but on the inside they can be extremely ugly, and you still have to move with love and understand, like you said, that this is not a me thing. And it's actually really good of you to really be able to understand that, you can't take all of the responsibility for those situations all the time, and that it is important to understand other people's journey, and that it is important to understand those detachments. That's why, like, part of like the law of attraction is that you're actually never supposed to attach, which is difficult because we're human, right? Like, it's like almost impossible. And when you connect with somebody on a certain level, like, it's almost like an automatic attachment, but it's having a healthy attachment. And that's the beauty of being healed, is like understanding those things and being able to create these boundaries when you see things becoming codependent or far too attached, or you feel that you're getting far too involved in these situations. So it's beautiful that you've done all the work. So now in your next round, when your next relationship, you're going to go in healed. You're going to go in knowing all these things, and it's going to be just another beautiful journey, which is really exciting.
I think it set me up really well. I have recognized as I've started interacting with the possibility of, again, finding a partner in my life, my communication is just different now. Like, I'm asking for them to show up in their most authentic self possible. I'm asking them to honor my boundaries up front at the beginning. Like, I'm aware that I'm no longer going to sacrifice myself for the need of not being alone or the need of receiving love. It's I love myself. I'm whole first. And then I'm asking you to be whole first. And then if we can move from that place, then we get to make, like, this is a decision. This is not a need. This is not a you're filling something up in me. This is not a finally I don't have to feel something. It's I'm whole, you're whole, and we get to make a choice. Friends, business partners, interactions that I have, it's a conscious choice of we're both making ourselves whole first and then offering a whole version of us to each other.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I like to call that a partnership. Um,
Mm.
that's kind of how I see it. Is like I don't really like the dating world. Like, I don't really consider relationships. Like, I either have really good friends. Well, they're all relationships, but as far as like dating, like intimately, I either have a partnership or I have like acquaintances, and then I have friends.
Yeah.
Because I agree with you. I wouldn't be willing to date somebody that wasn't able to offer their whole selves, because you can't. Because if it was one thing that I'm not willing to do, or people that have been on this journey are not willing to do, it's regress. So we can
Yeah.
absolutely be friends, but you have work that you need to do. So I'm going to need you to do that, and in the meantime, I'm going to be here to support you. So that's great. That's so wonderful. It really is, and it's not too much to ask for. I think that in the beginning for me, I was kind of like, okay, well, a lot of people don't understand what I'm trying to say, and like this isn't coming across well. But then the more I started to realize, like, those people were not meant for me, and that's why they didn't understand. That's why they didn't make it to the next phase of my life, because they weren't meant to. And if they were meant to, then they would be here. So
Mhm.
I think that that's super important to know too, because you don't want that to be a negative self-reflection on you, where it's
Yes.
like, well, why not me? But in reality, it could have just been the universe's protection.
Yeah.
Which I think is beautiful too, because I'm also working on that as I move through life. Like, instead of constantly trying to focus on like the negatives about myself and
Mm.
why not me, it's more or less because they weren't worth it. Or because, like, I've done the work. Now it's your time. Which I think is a beautiful thing to be able to recognize.
I'll equally say I really enjoy with my relationships is when I hold that standard and I kind of offer that to somebody. I actually recognize most people want to raise the standard for themselves, where you're almost giving them permission. Like, I have found less people almost threatened by it, and more people over time that come to me like, man, I got up this morning, I did my breath work, or like, I got up this morning, I did my journaling. Like, or I did my self audit before I went to sleep last night, or you know what, I was a little stressed at work and I stepped away and I did my breath work and it was really powerful. It's like all of a sudden I'm actually like kind of offering, because most people are searching right now. Like if they're lost, they don't actually enjoy being lost. They're actually really struggling, but
Yeah.
they don't necessarily are given tools or platforms from other people to do that. So then when I'm like, hey, here's something that you can do, here's something you can offer, and then they start making changes, it's almost like that invite. Like, you don't actually have to meet my standard. I just need to see you aware that the standard is actually where we need to head, like kind of like a lighthouse. Like,
Yep.
cool, we're all heading towards the same direction. You don't have to be there, but at least aware of yourself. Or they'll send me a text and like, man, today I felt this and then I did this. I'm like, yes, like you're just becoming aware. Like that journey is powerful.
Yeah, it really is. Wow, this was truly an amazing episode. I'm really glad that we were able to connect. Do you have anything that you would like to share with any of the viewers? And where can they reach you?
Yeah. Instagram is probably best. I do a lot of activity on Instagram. Kenneth Authentic with a K. So it's literally KENNETH and then authentic with a K. And that's the easiest place on Instagram to find me. What do I want to share? Yeah. I think first and foremost, if I was to share something, it's start the journey or process. Start looking. The time is going to pass no matter what. 5 years is coming. 10 years is coming. And I want you to know the longer you sit in your current habits, the harder it will be to get out of them. And I do want to say that the current emotional state, mental state, how loud your brain is, how chaotic things are, those are habits and choices right now. I know it doesn't feel like it, but once you get to a point where you can look at them almost kind of detached, like there are moments where I look at myself and I go, okay, Kenneth, like that was your ego right there. Like I saw it, it's okay. And I don't hold myself from a guilt standpoint, but a recognition standpoint. Hey, you moved with your ego right there. The next time that comes up, I want you to move more with your soul and less with your ego. And in the beginning, that was happening a lot. Like in 100 interactions, I might have moved with my ego in 80 of them. And now I would say I'm getting to a point where I move with ego with probably less than 10. Like there are really intense things that happen in my life for my ego to show up. I'm able to really move. And it's really cool as of Joe Dispenza talks about our aura, the energy we can feel and like around us. Like when someone walks in the room, you're like, man, they're powerful. Their aura is real strong. As I have gotten myself more into soul and less out of ego, I have felt my ego or my aura grow. Like people want to just exist in my space more. And that's really powerful because then they start soaking that up and they start energizing themselves to really start moving. I'm getting the chills now just talking about it. Like now all of a sudden fathers are better fathers or better husbands, or mothers are better mothers or better wives, or friends are better friends, because like they started to choicefully move with love in conscious soul instead of with the ego. And I think we do that enough. We really can be the change we want to see in our world. Is just start moving with love. Just start the process. Like get on YouTube and just start YouTubing some shit. Like get on Google and just start reading a book or audio book. Like instead of doing a Netflix episode, jump on Gaia is a real great app, GAIA. It's an app that you can get onto that just does a ton of awesome spiritual work. There's a YouTube series called Old School. It goes through just a bunch of cartoon style conscious cartoons. Just start soaking and searching it. And over time, all of 2024, all of 2026, all of a sudden, you'll really start seeing your life change. You'll make more money. You have more energy. Your relationships are better. Your self-talk is better. You get better sleep. Like all of these things start showing up better if you just start doing the work. Yeah.
Wow, that was a beautiful message. Truly, it really was. That was wonderful advice. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really hope that we can collaborate again sometime in the future.
I love that. Yeah. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Take care.